My name is Agnieszka and I'm going to be studying computer science at the University of Cambridge this October, and I'm just here to give you a bit of advice if you're thinking of applying to either Oxford or Cambridge, and then I'll talk a bit about how I approached my exams. So the first thing I really want to say is that if you're thinking of applying to Oxford or Cambridge, then just apply. I think you're much more likely to regret it if you don't do it than if you do, and you've got 5 options, 5 university choices, so one of them might as well be Oxford or Cambridge if you really want to go there, because at the end of the day, the worst thing that could happen is that you get rejected, but the best thing that could happen is that you'd end up having a place there. So I think it's really worth just going for it and just applying. The next thing I want to talk about is enthusiasm and having a passion for your subject, because I think this is the thing that the admissions team will look for the most. They want to see that you're passionate and they want to see that you really do love your subject. And I think the best way to show this is by doing extracurricular activities. So for example, I did a week of work experience at the University of Birmingham doing maths and computer science. I did a 4-week Nuffield research placement at the University of Coventry. I think that was especially beneficial because in my personal statement I could say I spent 4 weeks working on my subject, 4 weeks of my free time doing this, so it obviously showed them that I really love the subject if I'm willing to give up so much of my time dedicated to it. I was also part of Realising Opportunities, so I got the chance to write an academic assignment, which is just like a research essay, and I think that was so massively important in my interview. It was one of the things that we talked about for a while in the interview, and I think it really helped me. Another thing that I did is that I attended quite a few summer schools. So what's really good about is if you're in year 12 is that you can apply for the Sutton Trust summer schools and they're subject specific. So I applied for a computer science summer school and I got to do a week of computer science lectures, which again goes to show that I was passionate about the subject. And another thing that's really good I think about the summer schools is that if you go to, let's say, a computer science summer school and you don't like the lectures and you don't like what they're teaching you, then you've got a chance to change what you're applying for, which is really important. I think it's important, especially in year 12, because of the early Oxbridge deadline, to really say yes to a lot of opportunities. So if there's a lecture that you really want to attend, such as there's the popular maths lectures at the University of Birmingham that I went to, and there's quite a few at the University of Warwick. I think it's really important to go because it's another thing that you can put on your personal statement and another thing that you can talk about. We're lucky that we have the University of Warwick so close, so if you just keep an eye out on what they're hosting, I know they have quite good life sciences lectures if you're interested in biology or chemistry. And I was also part of the student leadership team, so you might have seen me running around at some point. So what I did as part of the leadership team is there was weekly meetings, and at points I got to organise like assemblies or meetings, and I think it's really vital to show. I think that was really good because it showed that I was willing to take up that leadership role, and I was really enthusiastic about being like a big part of my school. So that's just a few of the things that I did, but obviously if there's something that you want to do that is more suited to your subject, then go ahead. Like I know for medicine you need to do a lot of work experience, so that's something that will be really important, and I know for other subjects it will vary quite a lot, but you've just got to show that you're not just in sixth form to learn the A-level content and that's it. You've got to show that you're interested in the subject beyond the A-level, so that's just something to consider. next thing I'm going to be talking about is my actual Cambridge interview and what that was like. So obviously I was scared for my interview. I think anybody would be, to be honest. And it's obviously normal to be scared, but you want to try as much as possible to push that feeling down and not let it take over, because you've only got this set amount of time, and you don't want to spend it, being nervous. The interviewers there, they're trying to, get the best from you. They're not going to try and disadvantage you, and they're not going to try and trick you. They just want to have a conversation with you, and it's good to remember that. I think a really, really, really important thing to do before your interview is to read your personal statement, see exactly what you've said, and then if let's say you've mentioned that you read a book, maybe skim that book, make sure that you know that book. If you mention a research project that you did, read the research paper that you wrote on it, because it will be so vital. If they ask you a question, oh, so what did you do in this, you can straight away just answer them because you've looked at it beforehand. I think the main thing really is to just be yourself, and I know it's cliche and probably everyone's telling you that, but it is really important, because if you're going there and you're pretending to be someone that you're not, you might get the place, but it might not be right for you. So just be yourself and be really passionate, enthusiastic. Read about new developments in like your subject before you get there, in case they ask you about that. And finally, just enjoy yourself. I know it might be really, really hard because you're going to be scared, but just make the most of this opportunity. If you're having an interview at Oxford or Cambridge, you're going to be spending maybe 2 nights there, so just make the most of it. Talk to new people, try and make some friends, some connections that you have before you end up going there, if you do. Now I'm just going to be talking about my approach to exams and everything revision related. So I think the very first thing I want to say, because I think it's really, really important, is that you should be using your freeze. I know it's so annoying, you hear that all the time from all your teachers, but they say it because they have good reason to. Your frees are going to be so important. These are like precious hours that you have to get your work done in school or outside of school if you're only 13. I think it's really, really, really important to use those frees. Like, for example, my Monday morning was three periods, and as much as I would have loved to just sleep those 3 hours, every single Monday morning I'd get up and I'd spend those 3 hours doing something productive, and it really, really, really helped. So the next thing I want to talk about is just make sure that you're starting early, especially in year 13 with revision. It's best to start early. You don't want to get close to the exams and realise that you've done no revision and that you need to start now. You want to start really, really early. So for example, I started revising properly probably in the January before my exams, but before that I was already revising because I think we had January mocks. But it's really important to start early. I do understand that the start of year 13 is going to be difficult, it's going to be tough, especially with that early deadline that Oxbridge has. It's going to be hard, but once that is all done, once UCAS has been sent off, you should be putting your full focus on your subjects. The way that I approached revision might not work for you, and I think it's really, really, really important that you find a revision method that works for you, but I will just walk through what I did. So what I would do is I would probably stay in school until about 5 o'clock every weeknight. So I'd have a to-do list, so I knew what I was doing, and I'd just stay in the maths block where it was quite quiet and I could just carry on with some work. I think it's really, really important to have that to-do list, to know what you're doing, so that you're sat there working, not sat there procrastinating. So I would do that every weeknight, and then I'd head home, I'd have a little bit of a break, and then I'd carry on with a bit more work. This wasn't always the case, but usually I'd go home and I'd still do a bit more work on top of the work that I'd done in school and in all my frees. So I do that every single weeknight, and then on Saturday I had my part-time job, and then every single Sunday I took as my day off. And I think it's really, really important that you take some days off. I don't think it's emphasized enough how important it is to just have some downtime, to let your brain recharge, but it is really, really, really necessary. I think if I was working as hard as I was during the weekdays, every single day, I would have definitely burnt out. Definitely. But because I had that free time, I had time off where I would, on that Sunday, I wouldn't do anything unless I really, really needed to. It meant that every Monday morning I was recharged and I was really, really ready to work. When it comes to revision, I think it's really important to have a schedule, to have a routine that you follow. I, for example, had a timetable that I made in Google Sheets, and that meant that every time that I worked from like the 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock in school, I would, make a box go green, and then I'd talk about what I did, and it was really, really, really good for me. Might not be as good for you. I think it's just about finding what's best for you, but I followed this routine day in, day out, and obviously I had my little weekend break. So I think it's really important, because once you get in this routine, it's so much easier to carry on. You don't have to force yourself to start revising, because I know it's really hard sometimes to motivate yourself, but when you have this routine, you just get in the habit of it, and it's so much easier. And I think the last thing to say is that just work really, 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 really hard. That's the most important thing, really, is that if you put loads of work and loads of effort in, that will reflect in your exam results. So just have that goal in mind, whatever university it might be, have it in mind. Even if it's not a university, if you're taking a gap year, have these grades in mind that you want to get, and just work towards that, and work really, really hard. Because when it comes to the exams, you can just say to yourself, I've worked as hard as I can, and whatever grades I get, they're the grades I deserve. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I've got to say. I'd like to wish you guys the best of luck in applying wherever you do apply. So yeah, best of luck.